모두 규제디 받아야 이제 맞은 바바도 나는데 이제 저러고 마마무자도 왜 저를 저도 남처럼 이제 출로도 너로는 저라는 거 받아라고 이제 그래서 봐도 이제 내려와요 뭐도 이제 저러는 거 뭐하냐 규제 가보고 방법도 봐줘 공부가 좀 나와놓고 와네 오미지 이제 보고도 가지고 뭐 내가 또 공부도 너무 좋아 소로와 대해서 전통하잖아. 그게 중요해. 보면 보죠. 지나서 되는 것도 다 지나서 뭐 주기는 다다도 네. 다들 주로 막 대표는 정말 주로 마시니 많이 적당 다 같이 하고 토크요. 얘는 마시봐 싸봐. 영화를 내 방법 봐도 얘는 대리마도 시기 요래. 시간이 양도 가리고 요래. 저 고래. 아무도 고. 필요하지 고지. 일지 동자들 삼노동 용지. 디 동자들 문에 가리 누마 닦고 삼노동 용지. 이 양도 삼노동 문에 대리세. 또 되는 문에 생각 팽기 요래. 고아가 영화 잡기니 때도 팽기요래 다른 거는 팽기요래 저는 바뀌어가도 가다랑 셈내더니 기본적으로 말해 이 양농섬도 온 거래 뒤설내더니 같이 일랑 같이 마음 쉬나 저도 팽기요래 얘는 어디 같이 콜 바꿔 이렇게 콜 망고 판나 대한테 양쪽 다 적혀요 말해 같이 콜 파는 들이 도다 비치운 제수가 문제는 말하리 봐, 책을 잡아 마주, 동지 잡아주. 대성구를 그러더니, 쏴빠도 주로, 니 같은 게, 두상식 거래지. 강이나, 뺐나, 다 주로, 니가 같이, 다 로망고 차요래. 야, 다른 담요니, 정치라, 양 담요니까 와시요, 그래. 이 맞다 볼때 제일 가리 패기를 가시 공개 담겨니까 시들 나는 거예요. 동네의 신도가 뭐다 아주 쳤다 그래 담겨시가 시대나 세계인이 이렇게 빼자는 하나라 시인 거가 얘는 시심이 오가 제 동네들이 제 도다 가래리 담겨니가 신부들이 가래 좀 물리지를 못치래 근데 토가와 동다대 세계 그거래. 동다대 자탕 시설 토가 물리도 공부인지 싸지적 맞도 용나라. 약속이잖아. 물리도 공부인나 토야 말이지. 토는 네 시기만 모래. 나 죽고 시그래. 시는 내기 짓을 나와마도 도다 니들 노상로도 강그냥 피마비가 대상 못하나. 어떻게 좋게 나오는 건지 좋으니 고마도 잡나 5만 원, 6만 원, som들이 들이들 내비게 되만이. 내 말에는 주님바탕 배서는 도구요지. 지금은 하정들이 사빠도 주로 인바탕 되겠지. 주상은 뭐지, 그래.
So today, my Dharma friends, many of you are older, senior Dharma friends, and most of you have received many different teachings before, and there's nothing new to be said, nothing that you have not already heard. Maybe there are some amongst you who are new disciples and who have not heard these teachings before, but most of you have heard these teachings before. And so why do we need to talk about it over and over again? First, when we hear the Dharma teachings, we gain an understanding, and then we must contemplate that understanding. Think about the meaning of that. And that is then the experience. When you think about what you have heard each and every day, you gain experience, which is the second step. And then through thinking about it again and again, you come to a realization, thinking, this is how it really is. And then you realize. And only then it really benefits your mind stream. So it is a good virtue, a merit to hear the teachings and also to think about the teachings, but it is still of a smaller benefit. It is still somewhat far away, the meaning of that. It is important that understanding, realization, experience and realizations, those three come together. And only then the teachings have really benefited you. Of course, the more teachings you receive, it is always beneficial, but then we should look inside how much we actually have contemplated that and have thought about what we have heard. And many of the things we have already heard. But Milarepa, for example, many of you take notes, but then you never look again at these notes. So then you don't have really look at them again. And so it is good that you take the crucial points and then overlook these crucial points again. As Milarepa says, do not cut the root of words, but of the meaning. So you must get to the essence or the meaning of the words. And in particular, that I would like to say to my senior disciples who have received many teachings before and who have studied for many years. For example, today when I will talk about the precious human incarnation with the freedoms and endowments, again I will teach about that today, and you've heard that many times before. So why do we have to talk about this over and over again? If I were to ask you, do you know about the precious human incarnation, you may say, I know all about that. But whether we really have integrated that into our mind stream, you must look and see for yourself, looking inside your own mind stream. And so I'm here giving these teachings and explain these teachings according to the scriptures. But then what is the actual essence contained within that? What do we have to take from that? Why are we talking about the precious human incarnation? The essence that we are introduced to it is you have obtained a precious human incarnation that is extremely difficult to obtain. This precious human incarnation is very rare. That is really what that understanding, that is the essence that we should take with us. It is extremely difficult to obtain a precious human incarnation, and it is very rare to obtain. And moreover, there is many causes that can lead to my death. I will die quickly, and when I die, I will follow along the karma that I have accumulated, and none of my families and friends and all my wealth and possessions will be of any use at that time. So if you really have understood that, then we get up early in the morning, go to sleep late at night, and every time we awake or we can think about it, we recite the Mani mantra. That state we will reach. And if we have not reached that state, then even if we listen to Dharma teachings, there is some benefit, but still it has not been completely integrated. And so in particular, this is something to keep in mind by my senior Dharma students.
다 사자정복 나디를 주가래지. 속설 찍기는 사자정복 나디를 무서 이해는 제출. 이는 무서 동적 가지고 삽취. 그런 많이 봐. 예. 쌈집법을 잡아인 속 쉐기고. 대신에 가시기서는 좀다 소소. 이는 로를 제주 도망 많이 봐를 쉐기고. 쉐기고. 대라 뭐하네. 다 가시를 안 하면 좀 다 대정하고 딱 사람들이 잡아되겠지. 소식 좀 다지 다 대정 이다 그냥 말했지. 이 사람이 요리. 대야 놓고 요리. 강이 사야지 뭐가지 집어지. 용식이 저게 요나 정타 용도도 없고 남부 정타 용도도 없고 나디는 말로 도박이 약하요 그래. 그거. 좋다 사람이 남들 인당대 철쭉 뒤네. 인답 되어지는 꽤나 다시 뒤집고 주나 많이 시바 나다 나도다 제 좀도 뒤집고 주네 나디 녀서 랑도 좀다 용도 그랬더니 내 녀서는 내가 가래 톡고 그래 내가 산속했나 봐니 톡고 그랬지 내가 산속했나 봐니지 좋다 한글 좀 고래 형냐 내가 되니 마도 좋나 사족했나 봐, 야, 사족했나 봐, 이 발이. 소소라, 사지 쫑디 얘기, 못돼 낭자래. 샘지식 능보지, 요래. 가보게, 쫑을 와, 연의 지식 능보지. 뛰는 물리 지니지. 中了，别提就这几年过的，现在当地的有别人有人脑过去，倒是有人有人在拖拉当的，俺好去过没？我的都说去说，他说你病咱们跟了，没当这个掐了药了吧？没当这个掐了药了，这他就说去等于用的干的钱了，对。哦，没当这个你讲的用了，身体挂了，这还够用吗？或者多的是，那没的。我那不中嘛，不中嘛的，那都这的，那没的，所以说他们这里当不了嘛的，这行嘛我的这个的，哦，对。就容易或计划到落人口就是讲的从，到长期中间这个方面，决定我估计的，用我估计发起了，不到三九三去，用我估计这个就这个去，什么在民间的，另一个就这个大地的，另一个就大地的，结果呢，饮品的落马到，那品种叫做到这些不马来西，哦。除了上年级全国的有了接了，就哪里要买吧，就上了吃当过的大，因为年级全国的接了，就什么大的要买吧。我做一上两因为年级这样的要买，什么这么多没了，到你这家就把没事，就是我什么这个呢，多把你这样要买，这个有的这里有人我一边弄的什么强的呢？这里缺草了，差的哪地上有我被这现在咱们都不买。자동차하고 말이지. 진짜는 호막한 거도 구독 단축생 거래. 구독 단축생 상능기까지. 다 소소소치다가 로마고 있는 이제 소식줄 상능기가 세도 서로 상능기에도 서로 고도도 들이 딱딱지 땅. 오, 막 상능기 하장 충충이지. 가시 오마 어때도. 막 잡으려는 약고 차는 때문에 나는 나무에 약고 나무 차창에 약고 차는 싸움. 늘리 这样才这样人，可是人民不是，刚样不是，少让人基不到不是，把他们那国际强动，这里慢慢啥，这老了都有的，这刚个中的这老的这样的哦，西南那边当地切断的呢，那个八大穷啊，那个怕死，所以他们那国际这里这个，这种的搞到当地种的，这我不热，다 동일 기본으로 좀 와서 동의가 저도 가와지 동의 저도 뜻이 뭐 되는 거예요. 강리지. 다 빨리 나서 이제 레스코. 이거 가리. 저랑 바상 주말로 그만 세워서 지어요. 라고 세워 도저 세워지. 지금 가리죠. 나서 세워 지고 쉬어들라 내가 요리. 랑kim 피랑아 때 맞지 지는 내가 더 요리. 어디 내가 강의 읽고도 제안 읽고도 제 사진 돈이 저기 좀 어떻게 봐. 그도 사죠. 생성. 그래서 그도 사죠. 생성들이 예담도 사고 맞지. 죽고도 사는 게 있잖아. 죽. 사하가 죽도록 와 있다. 죽. 그러게 현대식이 뭐다 이모 찾고 요래. 다 이상도 사고 죽고 요래. 예담도 사서 사죽생들. 사죽생들하고 라. 예담도 사고 맞지. 야. 다 고도 사정생 양다고 유를 찌나야 다 동당게 대식이 보내 통보나 사지 쫄리들 당에서 추사 말해 말하니 그 가리강에 자도랬지 그 강 동달에 동당 사정생 뭐 거기서 가리 자도를 나로 비지 가리강에 자도 이선나 동당 사정생 통치들이 동당 사정생이 소주까지 자 마도하래 다 탑대. 다 냠이스 하고 주바도 이마도 같이 가서 봐. 그다 쳐 못합니다. 냠이스 하고 주바도 강리 좀 달라만 불고랬어. 라마티기 냠이지 하고리 라마티기라. 라게 제와적이 치우나 스바ጭ바 차고요. 어디 냠이 가르치라고 스바도 랩톱을 올렸지. 오, 들이 라마는 불고 마시. 제 공전들이 라마는 물건들이 라마 센터 도서쪽과 전 동남들 지금 내로 갖고 그러니 내로 갖고는 들이 이전에 이것도 하나 안한 걸 나봤어. septisampi sepdeshiki mo jol deshiki mo gabo biston talmiri san jodeshiki mo mosim yore ya rajin samchi sangi re shasi lower to me, lower to my round to Ivauna. Yeah, you move to a shot. Same quarrel kind of. The other happen, the suggestion don't happen. What did you get what the man of Father never said to you? That the top of the water. Do you know what the London must only Lama movie something go yori? Some get some go yori. So to talk canvas on the song. Yeah. You don't have something go yori. Three men caught in it. Looked at the walk, the women that was. 사실 이마가 독신이세. 그래서 유사마가 사실 돈다 미스는 미치를 맹성 딱반하기 차들마도 나디는 말고 도사 요소도 일단 고가 작사 이러나. 대다고 신어 오 나디 양선하는 듯. 라고 도다 토비한테 토는 독자들이 하고 그래. 이반이. 이 무슨 양선 랑내지 쳐서 이런 거 얼마. 무슨 양 많아? 얘네 얘기 많이 얘기 다 책이 있어. 책이 있어 다 그런 기본 뭐 저게 저는 사기가 어디 칠수있나? 나 지금 줘야요 말이야. 메트도 힘겨요 말이야. 이게 상매다. 그러나? 라비 냐들이서 하고서 배대다로 상모들이 주로 나가게. 축강을 성을 예신이 강단지는 나도 도도에 가리라거든. 제가 세마를 저 전네들이 미지나 사고래서 미정보지. 미정보지 남아의 토통을 하고서 다시 저도 생을 주는 양이 제고. 내 말에는 가보고게 가르쳐. 당가 요는 양서 말하나 내배 미자 똑바다라데 도움에서. 기와는 모두 유리 편요래. 우리 비반매가 싸우는 말이야. 그래서 왕직 토는 왕직 비용은 송가. 가리 왕직은 제대로 통네. 다른 가는 양설이 맡았나 기와 등그 순이니. 제가 누구 기초 관계사 이발 랩탑소 들송 거래. 이월 비용 싸움을 잡아 이거나야. 다다란 게 다다가 동네 다니 제도 막 마음껏 등기 요거도 같대. 내가 차트 보여 말아. 얘들이 통화되는 가디 맛이 공나. 들이 주로다비 대세는 그런 것들이 다다 주요 통통이. 예비신이 사만든 공나반들이 주고 요래. 저들 않게 가보 와. 용 들이대지도 또 내지 나는 꼭 죽고 그래. 오, 내가 버리게 되어주면 제가 하고 요리. 종이송 성진 로이들은 로도고요. 줄을 산쪽 세우나? 로이, 야, 다쪽 사지에 꼽아 덮고 그랬지. 사지를 꽂아서 잡숴서 잡을 혀와 매 봤지. 뒤집 잡지. 혼전 입에 대화지. 나가 사지를 떼봐서 덮고 요래. 동티에다 보니 주로 나게 덮은 진 거래. 땅아 용띠 집어 맨날 양용만 보래. 출신이 양용 안 하나? 타지 보래. 도마대 말은 걸 목소리.
So today we begin an introduction to the Fivefold path of Mahamudra. And so someone who hears that may think that this is something special that belongs to the Drikung Kagyu lineage and that other lineages do not have. It is something special, a profound teaching that we have in the Drikung lineage but that others do not have. But actually that is also mistaken because it is just put in this way, but other lineages all also practice really the Fivefold path of Mahamudra. It is just given that particular name in the Drikung Kagyu lineage. And so if one doesn't understand that, one may think that, oh, then each of the lineages has their own approach, their own practice, and so my lineage is the better one and the other ones don't know what kind of special practice we have in our lineage. And the other lineages are not that special. That is quite mistaken. The Fivefold path of Mahamudra, if you know how to listen to it properly, you will see that it actually is practiced throughout all the different lineages within the Buddhist practice. There is actually no other path than the Fivefold path of Mahamudra. Lord Jigten Sumgön condensed this path into its essence and gave it the name the Fivefold path of Mahamudra. So Lord Jigten Sumgyun was the one who arranged it in this way, but then really all the other lineages also practice it. Because we must also look at what is the result or the purpose of practice in all the lineages. It is that we must obtain the twofold bodhicitta, and that is the very result of any of the paths that we enter. So in the beginning, the Buddha introduces us to the cause. That is the nature of your mind, Buddha nature. Gambopam had called it the primary cause is Buddha nature. The working basis is the precious human incarnation. So first we're introduced to this primary cause, the Buddha nature, that every sentient being has. It is like a wish-fulfilling jewel that we all have, but sentient beings make no use of it and just waste this potential. And so sentient beings take form in the different realms of samsara, the 6 realms of samsara. In this world, for example, there are the humans and the animals living together, and each of them experiences their own individual difficulty, suffering. And although humans and animals appear distinct, their mind really is the same. But people do not understand this, and they think that that's the animals and we are the humans, or that's even within the animals, that's an ant and that's a snake, a poisonous snake, and I'm a human, so I am a different being. And that really also is quite mistaken. When we look at the animal, why do they take on a body like that, a suffering body like that? The Buddha introduced us to the cause when introducing to the relative bodhicitta. The Buddha taught that is the cause of happiness, loving kindness and compassion. And that is the cause of suffering, self-grasping. In order to destroy self-grasping, we must cultivate an altruistic mind. If we fail to cultivate an altruistic mind, we cannot overcome self-grasping. When you cultivate loving kindness and compassion, look inside your own mind. In that moment, you do not think about yourself in just that instant. When you think about it, you can actually see that. When you cultivate compassion for a being, in that very instant, you do not think about yourself. In the moment when you think about yourself, in that instant, you do not think about others. Lord Jigten Sumgyun said, there within one mind, it is impossible to have 2 thoughts at the same time. So you just have one thought. And if you give rise to an altruistic mind, there is no self. Whenever you give rise to an altruistic mind, the mind becomes like hot water. And so the mind cannot freeze into an ice block of self-grasping. So in the beginning, we are introduced to cultivate bodhicitta, relative bodhicitta, and that is loving kindness and compassion. And now we have engaged in practice for many years. So look inside your own mind. How much compassion have I cultivated? How many thoughts of anger still arise? You should investigate that. Some may find that my compassion is very small. Some may find my compassion is not that bad, actually. So you have different experiences. For example, there are some people who say, I want to benefit this world. Or at least they say, I want to benefit my family. That also is already a mind of love. There's other people who have no need for family and they just want to be happy for themselves. They do not care about anyone else but themselves. And then they begin to engage in negative conduct, such as smoking and starting to drink. And then it gets worse and worse, and they are born as an animal. What is the cause of being born as an animal? One takes on this form if wisdom or intelligence is extremely weak and self-grasping is very strong. When one does not care about anyone, even one kills one's own husband, wife, or children. When one's intelligence is so weak and self-grasping is so strong, one is born as an animal. So the fault in that lies in self-grasping. And now when Garchen Rinpoche was just leading the opening prayers, we said, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness, and be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. That that cause of suffering that we mentioned, that is the constant thought of I. We always think about ourselves. And the cause of happiness is the mind of love, to think that may beings be happy. For example, if you love someone, if it is your husband or wife or your children, your friend, someone that you love very much, when you think about that person or when you meet that person, immediately how do you feel? You feel very happy. And why? Because you feel love in your heart. So the Buddha has introduced us to these two causes, the cause of happiness and the cause of suffering. And that is the relative truth. And then having cultivated the relative bodhicitta, loving kindness and compassion, we next come to the practice of the yidam deity. And so having cultivated the relative bodhicitta, only then we become a proper vessel to receive the teachings of secret mantra, or Vajrayana. Then we become somewhat closer to seeing our own true nature, Buddha nature. And only then it is appropriate to actually meditate on the yidam deity. Because the yidam deity is the embodiment of bodhicitta. So first and foremost, you must cultivate genuine bodhicitta, this relative bodhicitta of love and compassion in your mind stream. And only then you will be able to see the ultimate truth, your own true nature. When we see how many hardships the great masters endured, for example, the Buddha who accumulated merit, or the accumulations throughout 3 countless aeons, or Milarepa, how many hardships did he endure, and for what purpose did he endure these hardships? Just in order to see the ultimate truth, the nature of the mind. Or when we think about the great master Naropa, how many hardships did he endure? Only for the benefit of seeing the nature of the mind, the ultimate truth. And now, as we are the followers of the practice lineage of blessings, we can obtain the result without the need of so much hardship. This practice lineage of blessings is the lineage that we carry, primarily in the Nyingma and Kagyu lineages. And in that lineage, the next point, the third point, is the cultivation of devotion to the Guru. And that is when you have cultivated sincere trust and love to the Guru, and when you have cultivated such devotion, through that your mind will merge with the Guru. The realization of the Guru will enter your mind stream. So if you give rise to devotion, your mind will merge with the Guru, and when it merges with the Guru, you will realize your true nature, Buddha nature. When you when you come to that understanding, then you have finally come to an understanding of the true meaning of Vajrayana, or the secret mantra. The secret mantra is a path of pure view. The pure view is to see the true nature of all sentient beings, the Buddha nature, as Gampopa has introduced us. And when we realize that, we have cultivated authentic pure view. Then we realize that self and others all are actually Buddhas, and beings are obscured only by temporary stains. And these temporary stains are also contained within our own mind stream. They are the afflictive emotions. But the mind itself always remains unchanged by that. It always remains undefiled by these temporary stains. And if you realize that, you begin to understand the meaning of Mahamudra. And then in the end, we dedicate our rules of virtue in order to benefit all sentient beings extensive as space. So all these 5 levels or 5 points of the path, these are also practiced in all the other different lineages and paths. There is not a single path that does not rely on devotion. Every path practices love and compassion. All the different lineages practice the yidam deity. So we can see that all of these 5 practices are actually practiced in all the different lineages. They are just being given different names. For example, if one follows the lineage of scripture and reasoning, it is called the Madhyamaka. If one follows the path of Nyingma, it is called Dzogchen, and if one follows the path of the Sarma or the newer tradition, it is called Mahamudra. These three names are three names being given to a single person. So really we can see that this fivefold path of Mahamudra actually is practiced in all the lineages, and in fact there is no other practice than that. Everyone really practices that. And so when we engage in practice, it is important that we understand the essence of what is being said and do not just follow along the words. Also on this topic, one can elaborate extensively. If you were to receive teachings from Garchen Rinpoche, for example, it could take months even to talk about that. It is a very vast and great topic. And I personally do not have much knowledge, many great qualities, but I have some experience, and so I'm sharing these experiences with you, my Dharma friends. And so whatever Dharma we engage in practice, when we engage in practice, we must extract the essence of these teachings and understand what is the point to be practiced. What is it that I must apply to the mind stream here? It is the instructions that we receive is like a medicine that cures our illness. And to eat the medicine is like putting these instructions into practice. It is that we must apply that to our mind stream. Gampopa said, if you do not practice the instructions that you have received, it is like a sick person who has a bag of medicine but doesn't eat it. Then the medicine is of no use. So if you receive these instructions but you do not put them into practice, then the Dharma is of not much benefit. And however, we receive, there's always some benefit if we receive instructions just by listening. For example, when we receive empowerment, it is taught that if you receive a single empowerment in your lifetime, and if you do not find the time to actually put that into practice, only through the power of the blessing of having received this one empowerment, the blessings of the empowerment will ripen within 7 lifetimes. So there is a great benefit in just hearing the virtues and teachings, but still, if we have not applied that to our mind stream, for the time being, we will still not be able to tolerate the suffering that we experience at present, and we will also not know how to really avoid further sufferings in the future. So it is really important to apply these to the mind stream. And so these fivefold path of Mahamudra instructions will be a brief introduction that you should keep in mind, as we just have a short time to talk. But you always have spiritual masters here from whom you can receive further instructions. And so first you must gain an understanding. And then you must think about that, so you experience it. And finally you must come to a realization, so it really remains within your mind stream. And then it really becomes useful. And so if you have cultivated that path, and it has become integrated into your mind stream, then continuously, temporarily, you will be born in the higher realms and not in the lower realms. Even if someone were to say, now go to the lower realms, you just will still not go there, because you cannot go there if you have cultivated bodhicitta. And ultimately, you will attain enlightenment. So the 3 jewels, the teachings of the Buddha that we have received, are a trustworthy source of protection. And if we engage in practice, if we put that into practice, we will achieve unchanging, lasting happiness. And for this reason, I request you, my Dharma friends, to keep these instructions dear to your heart. And I am not someone with great qualities or learning, but I am someone with experience, and I'm sharing these instructions from my own personal experience. And it is always good that when we explain Dharma teachings, that they come from a place of experience. Then they will really bring a benefit.
Hey, 어디 뭐나 이 참 참을 빠떼요.
Aling ngalola yore. Iyo mare. Ang ngatring sito ngata ro.
들 토바사 족생 뽑아서 뭐뭐 사주 정보 뭐라 배우래 강나 배당 동의 요래 배당 동의제 가가지 거래 산당 현지 따포라 인피지 주토 맞제나 통라 뭐 지면 용은 생분로들 내딘주서 특대 배의 감들 배는 따포라 다장보지 다장보 따버리 다장가 속 샘들이지 야 사지성을 돌아 놓고 요 망이 성수는 돌아 놓고 요 샘들이 모두 코라왕 요래 배 뒤에는 이제 다장보도 있나 되게 되니 60년 정도를 합탑 잡는 여덟 탑수나 어떻게 다장보 고칠 거요 여덟 딱 도마 맞았나 저 다장보를 야절 호란이라 니라 직장 요만 내가 직장 요만 또 따르는지 니라 톡도 요래 때마도 그때는 이 주율라 선제식 뭐요나 제 사촉세도 로네 사촉세도 노버서 톡고 요래 요다다가 사촉세도 노버 톡고 요래지 대 마탐나 취 냠이 가리 제나야 저 사촉세도 맞으나 이팅 콜로 저래 내가 가시기 이제 마야 동부요래 수천명은 동부요래 가리상부요래 마음고 신을 하여랬죠 마 끼고서 마음과 마 속고 자고 마 내미 받쳐 마 정말 얘다 찍당 요말 때 호를 줘지 얘와 용 호를 줘 강리 마한테 마도는 호와를 탁해요 말이야 뒤에서는 남바 사지의 제주 강리 호만 나한테 매발줘 누구인가 따와 다른 문화 포마죠. 누구인가 저다 좋아지죠. 세대식 이거 나디다. 자꾸 나디지 말이지. 나디 저도 통구요 말해. 강렬. 저게. 저는 먹는 정에 다시 소마 대다 커시다. 야고 말해도 저기 람치 짓는 돌스는 너 잡았는 달려오고요. 오. 지금 가리 놓고 그때 람지나 다 중마래. 나지 달리는 거요. 딸랑딸 뛰는 맛이 랑난 거요래. 오딸 내기 맛이 있다 거요래. 대답으로 사는 내 사시 바지 같이 지금 사익적이고 말하지. 두 지나더니 유무가 해당 맞이에 차도 유무가 좁대 세비줄 째거요래. 토야 요물랑 그 생각 좋고 요래. 찌찌차니 딱 갑으로 된 토야 요물가. 멋진 통로 화장실당 난 걸 이거 다 대대. 얘는 주를 마음을 저 해당돼요나? 해당돼 사웅다 그래야지. 사직이 빼지 않아. 형 아쉬워 따지는데, 형 제보도 열어야지. 그러나, 형 사웅가를 내가도 뜨뜻한 뜨는 것이 하장 타고, 사웅 하장 타고 왔어. 내가 즉 끼어넣더니, 형 동공 가마 톡톡하고 째놓으러 왔어. 내가 탑지 써놓다가, 데렸더니, 정말 쫑 사실 쫑 저 나디제구나 유모바 덕대 이무서 뭐 가비리 짝세지 바기데 다 들어온 거래 다다디 자파스 디는 뭐 가비요로 와 디는 뭐 가비 띠딱이데 쿠던데 또로로 와 기타 찍기는데 정말 차고도 어디는 대다 되는 게 내가 치고고 나디제는 유모바 덕대 들어온 거래 이 사지 좀 디디마도 서트가 하고 말이야 뒤에 보더라. 생공론들이 이도 주기와 주기다 강적 됐네. 왕이 나야자, 가주에 나야자. 야, 무슨 년이 제대 그 짬도 생기니 직장이 오마라. 다들 짬도 생기 롱박한 요리. 이 동지에 책으로 사송 다 생각 가리로. 원디는 세리 늦게 가리 상을 땅 거라. 오, 생을 늦게 동본 호들을 잡수 송송세. 고조선을 잡수만 손을 가리리도 고조선을 잡수만 손을 니 사족선 나디에 파또 탑 사족선도 천리입에 다 하고 말이야. 사족선도 벽치기요 말이야. 가시게 뛰어왔지 위는 어디다가 이마 희냐 누구 탑상을 요 말이야. 실고를 돌기면 사족선 요야요 말이야. 야 나디에 돌리는 주 류트 같이 라소 깨고요. 라소 깨나요 주 나디 깨요 말이야. 딜리 너가 나만 해봐서 안 해. 당그랬더니 나디 채를 놓았더니 농에 빠도 내가 용구를 가. 별리 멋지게랑 쏘지, 주동에 빠져라 쏘지나. 대리 시선을 주, 이 해당의 랑 해당계는 싸고 남인지 마도 받아. 이 말을 라소를 지나와 참. 그 넘그 마음에 따라 넘그 rum에 되나? 넘지 마도 받아. rum에 되게 봐. 내기 받으라 유기 해당도 마도 받아. 이 누구에서 용을 받아 용을 거래. 대표가 제 사제와 또 하고 말라. 마셔는 해당을 내야 되는 용을 유리 해당되구나. 나무 해당을 주자라 해당하게 해야 돼. 좀 먼저 받으면 당겨야 해. 들이 가라 사무도 제일 해당하게 그래. 시에 해당해. 들이라면 이로 해당하는 거래. 하죠 때와 지고 도와주나? 따고 때와 치에 차도. 야, 다들 조이면 다 차도 찍으라. 다 차도도 해당하는 거지. 노차를 유무가 레레라 유무가 마마마 찍으래. 띠끼와 삼아 세면은 내기오라. 내대로 따라다리 랑 뭐가 맞대 통을 주. 막상지 해당돼 랑구라. 사원들 날다. 야가 로마들이 따고. 뒤에 따고도 시네. 어따 때는 토만이 나디지. 나지지 이거 마요나. 주강들나 비바요 말이지. 뭐도 오지고 탐쟁 흔들 놓아라. 오, 생기 탐지 내와다 뒤서나. 다치 나디지 매우 추 내와다 뒤인 거 요래지. 생기 탐지 폐기 요래. 때다 폐기 요래. 야. 가리 팽거도, 가리 팽거래, 찍다다. 야, 저런 하정, 제가 이거 도찍나? 이 도대, 경을 가도 와, 전 탐거도 가대. 가리도 탐거 요리. 왜 코를 쇠와 때리, 코, 통로 가고 요리, 코 통로 가고 요리. 대기가 딜가리 찍는 탐거를 저기 새로 내와 요리가. 오, 지 내와, 쇠와 대화를 넌 니는 이거 바로 쇠와 대성으로 되나? 사지 종디들 대도 쇠와 대. 따뜻한 야민 탐지 가래. 쇠와지 매화를 쇠와 요가 탑. 요와지 망도 공을 탑. 망도 공을 타는 쇠와지 마냐바 탑. 다 유방 공을. 쇠와지 송구를. 쇠와지 송을 탑. 사축 생존을 보지. 마치빠는 기절지. 기바 양반 매바해지. 기와지 송족체는 마냐바 탑. 강기 양구리, 세닥기 양구리를 차도가 양구리. 야, 나제게 양구리. 뭐 정확하게 좀 더 올라와. 어떻게는 기반 양반에 봐야지. 딱 공동배에 탑렸더니 다 상하고. 다 탑람탐지 또 공동배에 탑렸더니 뒤에는 양이 탐지 싸워대. 뒤에서 정부는 뒤에서마다 이 가량이 와버려. 뒤에서 남들랑도 사람 쭉 사지에 살면 몇 찍기는 올라와. 상계시 봐도 찝지나 콩나베도 사지 용도 망고 요데 제나 저 난디지 상고 주 셈데 자치 뭐 내키고 따라라 근데 파워너지 잡이고라 자촉 선바지 나기 이거 놓도 상고네 주 인정 총도 놓고요라 라봉 총도 놓고요래 야 너희 저 유무 하고 요래 그리고 자촉 생 쳐보지는 라그 루당 쏘거든 르보디 찍어 똥을 도로ኝ만 넘기면 또 르보디 뒤제에 봐 맞아 봐봐 하고 요리 그래도 사족 선박을 리서 쏘라 나지와 사지 좀 뒤지가 가박감이 좀라 소소박감 끓이지 마상와 고소지 마상와 대성지 변 도시와 지금 뭐들 도로ኝ 맞겠구나 그까이가 말봐 빼디도 하고는 추탐지 좀 먼저 놓아 사족 선비지 빠티 르바 탑 파송 요리 도나 머리를 폼네 따담조 특히 니가 겁주듯이 자세라니는 티다니 로요래 자세라니는 이 책용모 동디고 요 말하지 담조 특히 니가 겁주듯 나긴 홀로 소를 줬어 니당 티도 예왕이 받는 이 생보바 자세라니 이 나기 이가 코와를 타고 가리쳐 타고도 르 코와를 타도 세 코와마다 피도가 말해 나를 올라와. 나를 고발을 타들해. 누가라고 하면 나 가는 요 말이지. 이는 색강과 사두 요리, 동두 요리, 고, 대안용도 요리. 색 고발을 타요 말이지. 내와 끼나? 빼지는 이, 같이 색 고발을 타들해. 강 타들, 저도 고발을, 나는 다 등에 깡이 마고 용중지나. 꼬조유기도, 고발이 타고, 땅아지 보담 충만, 다 중이니, 랑 미병을 만드는 고발 통도 마음은 코를 탈고서 로 타들 뭐 요래. 주시라고 단대다고 시키는 호를 맞게서 뒤면에 샘포들 호를 못 타려 말아 뒤면에 마음과 타죠 그래 나도 오늘 못 탈리 샘마 탈 배로요 말이 샘이 양쪽 호를 놓으리 주기다 주직인 강의 자와체는 나도 오지는 나도 오지 봐봐지 뒤로 되우선 딱 호를 놓으려 이제는 한기 좀 만들어 와 자족 생비 디스를 들이 상속서 맞게와 깨가 탑 당중 니가 저와 맞다봐 저와 맞다봐는 다 저와 맞다봐 그러면 다 가리죠 다주 니도 로고 너다 로고 이제 같이 가리우는 주 직접 해야요 말아 제가 계획이 이렇게 마비다디 치보지 열어야 되라 마지게 공 키슈라 키슈라 야 아마 다 좀 고마운데 또 버렸지 하고 못없지 뭐지 하고 못없지 이 공 갑주 코요라 아마 다 그냥 마음거리 시디 나 가을을 제대로 대용건 주면 카드 중을 키고지 카드 중을 키고지 결심이 되게 송아리 야야 나참 대파 빼고 니 카드 키우면 되라 들이 비싼 거다 갑 들어오잖아. 들어오는 라르도. 나 카드 뭐를 짜다. 야 사. 우리 카드 체 느끼잖아. 카드 그야면 없지. 어따지 좀 거야 되겠는데. 이게 뭐네 포화로도 토리 빼대다 그래. 문에 쓰다 돈 양도 자르나. 거기 느끼 자와 놀러 좀 가리는 님몸이가 다 하고 그러라. 뒤에 따보더니 양수롱 거리 마도. 책자장 샤라로 푸는 게 비도요 말아 양지보지 갈고 어디나 저는 늦었대 말이야 파를 보고 좀 차를 다다서는 바꾸요 말이야
So the first point of the Fivefold Path of Mahamudra is bodhicitta, and for each of these points there is the actual meaning and then an illustration that we must understand separately. And so regarding bodhicitta, it is first said, if the steed, the good horse of love and compassion does not run for the benefit of others, it will not be rewarded in the assembly of gods and humans. Therefore apply yourself earnestly in the preliminaries. So this good steed, this horse, is the nature of your mind, Buddha nature, your mind. And the Buddha had taught that either we can use that in order to go up to reach the state of enlightenment or down to samsara. It is our choice where we will go in this life. So now we have our mind, the nature of our mind is like this precious steed. And only if it runs with compassion, then it will win the competition and it will become useful. If the horse is an excellent horse, but if it doesn't run in the competition, then there is no use of its excellent qualities because it's not running and so it is not winning. And therefore it will not win any rewards. So the horse must run in order to win the reward. And that is, we must use our mind, the Buddha nature, and cultivate love and compassion, and only then we will reach the result, even if we already have Buddha nature. So you possess Buddha nature, but you also must cultivate bodhicitta. You must obtain the precious jewel of bodhicitta. If you do not obtain this precious jewel of bodhicitta, it doesn't matter what other Dharma practice you engage in. If you fail to cultivate bodhicitta, it will just become another cause for samsara. For example, some people, although they engage in virtuous conduct, they are generous or observe ethics, ethical discipline, but what is the intention behind it? They may think that I'm doing that so that I can obtain a birth in the God realm, or so that I will be rich, or I will be free of illness. So there is that I that continuously arises. And no matter what virtue we engage in with the thought of I want to get something from that, it doesn't matter what virtue you do, it will become a cause for samsara and not the cause for liberation. So even if you engage in great virtuous deeds, as long as the I has not come to an end, you will never be liberated from samsara. So therefore, what is the special feature of the Buddha's teachings? In the very beginning, we must eliminate that I, because that is the very roots of all suffering. So when we say, may all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, that really means may they be free from self-grasping. May they be free from that I. That self-grasping is just a thought of I am just always thinking about myself. And that is something we cannot directly see that, but it always pervades our mind. It is always there. For example, if a Lama speaks about the disciple, for example, then you hear your name being said, that's one, that disciple, he is actually not that good. So if you hear your name being said and that you are not that good, how do you feel? You feel like someone is hitting your head with a stone. You feel terrible. And why do you feel terrible? Because the I has come. You're thinking about someone has threatened that I. And you get angry, and then you retaliate. And so you engage in negative karma. And that all arises from the thought of an I. And so in the same way, the other afflictive emotions arise from that I. When someone blames us, then we get angry, or we get prideful, or attached, and so forth. We cannot see that I with our eyes, but there is this feeling of discomfort that is always there. It arises, although we cannot see it. We get angry because of it, and then we say something, and so we accumulate negative karma. So the cause of all suffering in the future is that seed in a mind stream, like hatred that arises from the I. For example, the Buddha has given an example. There is this big tree, the Ashoka tree. It's a huge tree, but the seed is very tiny, just like a sesame seed. It is very tiny. But from these little seeds, a great tree grows, like a big house with many stories. A great tree grows from that little seed. And that example the Buddha used to show us the cause of self-grasping. If there is the cause of self-grasping, the other 6 afflictions naturally arise. We attract these afflictions naturally due to the grasping at the self, just like a magnet attracts iron. Or for example, this microphone here, a microphone gathers the speech and then it disperses it. And so everyone can hear it. So it pervades it. And so the self-grasping gathers all the afflictive emotions and then they proliferate. And that is something that only the Buddha himself has seen, and no one else has realized that. And therefore it is taught in the very beginning, apply yourself earnestly in the preliminary practices. Whatever practice you engage in, whether you receive an empowerment or a teaching or you engage in practice, all of these practices begin with refuge and bodhicitta, the correct motivation. And although we all recite the refuge and the bodhicitta prayers verbally, what is it that we should think in our mind? It is important that you think about what I must contemplate when I say these words. So I take refuge in the 3 jewels. How would it be if I would not have this refuge? We must be clear on that. When we cultivate bodhicitta, what is the purpose of bodhicitta? Bodhicitta is a method to destroy self-grasping. For this reason, we must cultivate bodhicitta. We must understand that the love for others is like a wish-fulfilling jewel. And it is so precious, it is more precious than any wealth in this world. Even if you had like millions of a certain measure of gold, you could not buy it. You could not buy that precious bodhicitta. And some people have such a lack of love and strong hatred in their mind stream, and therefore experience so much suffering. Some of them even take their own life. But when they take their own life, they still cannot take their self-grasping. It has not been harmed, and it will just get worse as the result will continue to ripen. The anger will increase, the grasping at the self will increase, and the suffering will be unimaginable. So people commit suicide because they think they can avoid suffering that way. And then when they die, out of hatred of themselves, that hatred increases. And after death in a bardo, every week, again and again, they experience that sort of death over and over again. Until the karma for this comes to an end, it will be experienced over and over again. It is just like if you imagine an oil lamp. The oil is like that karma, and for as long as that karma is there, for as long as the oil is there, there will be the fire. So as long as the karma is there, we will experience the result. And that is something that only the Buddha has seen. Even if we are still alive and we not necessarily die, but as long as hatred is in our mind stream, it perpetuates naturally. First, there is an aversion against those that we do not like, our enemies. And then we become irritated with anything that we do not like, even food that we do not like. We have an aversion against it. So that is the thoughts of hatred, of aversion that continuously linger in our mind stream. And from these thoughts, all the other afflictive emotions arise. For example, even if you have a friend that you actually love, if you love that friend too much, then the attachment gets too much, and then you get jealous when the person sees someone else. And then from that jealousy, you cultivate hatred. So each of the afflictive emotions can be combined with each other, and they continuously abide within the mind stream. For example, if there's someone that you do not like, the moment you see that person, you will get angry. And there is that seed again that has been there, even if you do not always see it. But it is the seed that will make a great tree grow with all its branches and leaves. If you understand that, you will discard the self-cherishing mind. But if you do not let go of the self-grasping mind, it doesn't matter what dharma you practice, it is of no use. And therefore we must make such an effort in the preliminary practices. So when we say, may sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness, when you have this sincere wish, really you are accomplishing your own happiness. And of course you are also bringing some benefit to sentient beings. So how are you benefiting beings with this intention? You should look for yourself in your mind. If you have a friend that you love very much, and you love this friend and he loves you, and then you meet and you hug each other, how do you feel? You feel very happy. That person will feel happy and you feel happy. And why? Because you love each other. So the happiness, the bliss that you feel comes from the love that you have for each other. And that is what the Buddha had recognized. And therefore the Buddha introduces us to a method to cultivate love where love has not arisen, and to allow it to increase and not decline. So how do we secure this love so that it doesn't decline? It is through the practice of patience. Patience guards this love so it doesn't decline. So all that the Buddha has taught was a method for love to arise where it has not arisen, for it not to decline where it has arisen, and for it to ever further increase. And so in order to guard this love so it does not decline, we must practice patience, because how does love decline? It declines through afflictive emotions. First there is love, and then we get angry or jealous or prideful, and we lose the love. The 6 afflictive emotions destroy love. Therefore we must be able to practice patience. The method to increase bodhicitta further, this third method, that is the skillful path of secret mantra or Vajrayana. So that is the root of all the practices. It is just to cultivate love where it has not arisen, and not let it decline where it has arisen, and allow it to further increase. All the practices are only for that purpose and for no other purpose. And if you engage in this practice and accomplish that, then you will attain enlightenment in just a single lifetime. And so when we talk about that word, Buddha, enlightenment, although we do say that the Buddha has many different qualities, but what that term actually really refers to is someone who has purified their self-grasping. The Tibetan word to clarify that for Buddha is Sangye, and Sang means to have purified self-grasping, and Ye means expansive. So once there is no self-grasping, the mind abides expansive, like a space, vast. And then one becomes like a hero. Bodhisattva is like a courageous one, a courageous being. If there is no self-grasping, there is no fear. There is no concern for one's own welfare. One has realized that the cause of suffering is the self-grasping mind. And if one has realized that, one becomes fearless. And if one becomes fearless, one is able to even let go of one's own body or life force for the benefit of others. One will regard that body just like a pair of old clothing, understanding that this body is a compounded phenomenon that is impermanent by nature. And for this reason, great bodhisattvas have the ability to let go of their own life force and body. Like the Buddha himself, who gathered accumulations for 3 countless aeons, and in these aeons he gave up parts of his body, his own lifetime, for the benefit of others, as an act of generosity, just seeing this body as a pair of old clothing. So the essence of all practices, and that which must precede all practices, is the practice of bodhicitta. That is most important. And so based on that then, we also cultivate the other preliminaries, like the difficulty to obtain a precious human incarnation, just as it is explained in the 37 bodhisattva practices. And the 37 practices really contain everything in a very concise form and yet complete. So in the 37 practices it says, this precious human body is like a ship of leisure and fortune that is really difficult to obtain, and therefore apply yourself day and night in order to engage in practice. If self and others wish to be liberated from samsara, what must be liberated is the mind and not the body. And for example, it appears that I have secluded my body from samsara, but then still the mind wants to experience happiness, the mind wants to eat good food and so forth. Still the mind is not liberated. And then there is others whose mind is liberated, but their body is not yet liberated from samsara. It is more important that the mind is liberated. Then one has understood, although one still has to engage in worldly activities, one has understood in one's mind that samsaric activities are the cause of suffering, and in samsara one only experiences great difficulty and suffering. One has realized the 3 jewels as a wish-fulfilling jewel. And one thinks that although in this lifetime I have no other choice but to take care of my family, but in the future I shall be liberated. Then the mind really is benefited. Then later on one will actually become free from samsara. The mind is liberated already. But if one only thinks about the body and one secludes one's body, and the mind is still preoccupied with mundane concerns, one will continue to wander in samsara over and over again. So whether one engages in a dharma or worldly activities, for as long as one considers oneself most important, one's own concern most important, and does not care about others, no matter what one does, one will continuously wander in samsara. So for this reason, because it is so important, the preliminary of all dharma practices is the cultivation of bodhicitta. And based on that, we begin to then understand and contemplate the other elements of the preliminaries, such as the difficulty to obtain a precious human incarnation, death and impermanence. For example, death and impermanence, although we have obtained this human incarnation, it will not last. And when we die, there is nothing, not a single thing that we can bring with us. Not our families, not our friends, not our wealth and possessions. There is not the slightest little thing we can bring with us at the time of death. There was a story about a teacher, a spiritual master, and an old lady, and she had strong grasping to this life, and so she received instructions from this master, and this master reminded her to turn her mind away from samsara, but she couldn't do that. She could not just comprehend the meaning of that. And so then the master gave her a needle, and he said, you keep this, and later, after you die, when we meet again, you bring that with you, and then bring it back to me. And she says, okay, I will do whatever you say, because she had so much faith in this Lama. So then she tried to keep this needle very well, and then she was wondering, so how can I bring that with me? Maybe I should put it somewhere on my dress. But then the dress, I will lose that dress. Then what will happen to the needle? So maybe I should put it into my head, so I can't lose it. But I will also lose my body. So how can I bring this needle? And then she finally realized that there is no way that she can bring anything with her. And she turned her mind away from samsara. So we must understand the meaning of what is said. The essence of this is that whatever we possess and whatever we do in the mundane world, our possessions, our wealth, families and friends, lack any essence. We cannot bring any of that with us. Only to engage in practice will be of any benefit. So when we read or hear these instructions, it is important that we really not just read that like a line and then not really understand what actually we should take from that, what actually we should remember in our mind. If we just read some lines and we don't really think about its meaning and what is the essence of that, then the essence to be obtained is still quite far away.
속차 똑같이 있다. 저 강을 내지 싸움도 안 거리. 그 세상을 내야 돼. 세상을 안 줬다. 미적으로 세상 치고는 야. 또 하자 농지고 저 세상 치고는 지도가 다도 요 말아. 야. 세상 범일라 조금 하자 농지고 요는 콜 세상 차도 치고 수가 다도 요 말아. 이 강이 세상 치고는 랑랑 농발 따라. 예. 무슨 통거리 다다른 세상을 알아. 뭐지 생을 다다른 야가 차려라. 갑자기 좌트리는 레고도 추를 찍게 저 파마리 삼이 그걸 제비오리 추랑 생 말을 참을 나비오리 말 사비는 다 제비오리 말 찍기도 맞다고 이 가림상 거다 나디가 아닌지 대들이 다 sembar 자공력이 자들이 지금 욕토도 총는 것들이 들이 여기 다다랑 들이냐 와나기 알작하면서 로라로 또 와 뒤는 좀 강바 요리 놀러 요리 다시 생각하리죠 또 강원이 자들 생각되어하면 그 강이 중에 될 때는 오 다속차 들어오든지 뺐나 속차였나 다시 말다 지우니 가요 하나 되거든 효고 배교대 남들이 하나지 그냥 뒤 수고 고도 속차 들어오죠 또 먹을 해서야 생기는 삼바생 능계는 되나 속차 지어하는 대답을 지어하는 거 봐. 야, 너도 똑바르다 똑같이 또 속차 객도로 와서지 문제는 같이 세 맞아라지 그 순수면은 마세라 세라 매 칼라는 똑딱거리 소작게 요리 내가 마수 세게 요리 고소 세게 요리 레지 맞지로 오 산나트리자 레지 비라 단정 타관다 님레시 받은 정랑께 님레라 정랑께라 세줌레 나줌레 이 세줌레라 야매 마세 꼬만 바자 그냥 제매지 내가 요라 말해 남들 좀 세당 차도 라는 니바 메와마도 니 말해라 생각했지 라는 남을 가르치어도 보다 추가를 가르치어도 라마 몇시인을 가르치어도 싸움부터 뛰자면 다 잡아봐봤는데 막이 오르더라 대리를 했지나 니베라 있었지나 뉴모바를 했지나 다 시작 좋고요 늘지금 용띵시 사실 대 못해라 주자스로도 통화 가리 못해서 주들증이 뭐 저때 남부 사지 주라고 제비 시랍을 했지 새 사지 뒤돌이 줬봐요는 남부장이 사지 시랍 사지 좀 시랍 람 시랍 들증이 못해요 시랍도 가리고 시랍도 인제 되고 우리 돈이 인제 손에 들어와지 다 남바 사지가 저 대지 거래 다주 생기는 때와 사바의 경제도 나고 없어 대전 가리비는 다 나는 배가 나오고 배에 대해서 그러나 이 시랍들은 소마사도 용뭐 끼와대 다 내고 거예요 그래서 세상을 좀 그걸 가르치는 말하는 세상 체험이었고 말이지 말하니 너무 내줘도 세상 체험을 했지 그거 강만 토도는 토지 호가 세상 맞지나 누가 그냥 제 토요만 나서라고 토버리지 나는 가에 고를 도로다 기계를 비교하다 따뜻한 이 구바만 벌써 느꼈고요 내요 대답을 말 아니 왜 찾아라 드릴 예를 들면 기술로 좀 레지브레는 시기다 나지 추사미 카다야 뭐든 레지브레는 님이 시기다 어떤 상황을 넣고 잡고요 기술은 남기점을 상으로다 잡도 사기에 세점이 사기는 남기점이 시락 야 주대 경기 주대 시락된 경기 유세에 봐요나 왕그 답설가 데려가서 할까 시락된 경기도요나 무거워 되는 람들어가 샤과 제도요라 샤과 집어도 카그 샤샤샤도 편마이 오면 봐 생능이 우마 시당지와 체랑 야고 말했으면 다 생지로 똑같이 내그러면 야고 말했으면 시당지 오면 양지 때는 당연히니까 왔더니 저당 장이를 싸움었더니 무슨 꽤 빈소 어때 저도 저 레레레지다 많이 되게 싸움었더니 대다고도 쏘고도 눈에 이마를 팽그래. 들이 않는 절대 약으로 해야지.
And so, first is the method to cultivate bodhicitta where it has not arisen, and that is the contemplation on the difficulty to obtain a precious human incarnation. And so just to know that, to have heard that, is not sufficient. You also must really contemplate that. In particular, you should contemplate the difficulty to obtain a precious human incarnation in the morning before you get up. The moment you awake, you should remember the difficulty to obtain a precious human incarnation. And then with regard to obtaining a human incarnation, there are many different texts that explain the 18 freedoms and endowments, and you can read these texts and they're easy to understand. But then when it actually comes to training and integrating that into the mind stream, what I have found very beneficial to contemplate is in particular the difficulty to obtain a human incarnation in terms of its causes and numbers. In terms of its causes, in order to obtain a precious human incarnation, one must cultivate bodhicitta, an altruistic mind. And then you should look inside your own mind, how much have you cultivated, how much bodhicitta, love and compassion. Then you can see for yourself how difficult actually it is to create the causes for a precious human incarnation. And then in terms of the numbers, when you think about all the different life forms and animals that live in this world, some with bodies as large as mountains and some as small as little particles, little atomic particles, or when you think in the ocean, all the little animals that live in the ocean, and they pervade each of the atoms in the water. There is limitless little beings in the oceans. And then there is many more that we cannot see, and many more that have no body at all. Then we compare that to the number of precious human beings. So in that way we must investigate. And so when we think about humans and animals, for example, since humans and animals live together, there is some belief systems who say that, although they believe in reincarnation, they say that then you're always born as a human. If you're a human, you're always a human, and if you're an animal, you're always an animal. So it seems that they probably know what is the reality, but they just put it in a more easy way to explain. How is the reality? It is that when we take the mind of such a being, for example, the mind of a little insect, a little creature, that little creature wants to be happy and it doesn't want to suffer. And therefore it has attachment, it has aversion, it has ignorance. So there is no difference to the mind of a human being. It is exactly the same. There is just a difference in intelligence. So why does it have this different body then? Lord Jigten Sumgön said, karma, cause and effect is the embodiment of the momentary thought that we give rise to. And so when we think about the different forms that appear in this world, it really can be seen how karma embodies in so many different ways. So when you think about karma in this way, you really will come to an understanding that it is something to be very careful about. And what we need to be careful about is the afflictive emotions, such as hatred and jealousy. For example, when you look at some animals, like a poisonous snake or a scorpion, frightening animals, why do they take on a body like that? It comes from the negative emotion of hatred. And then the same happens in the human realm when we give rise to hatred. For example, even if you have a family and children and husband and wife, if you are always angry, they do not even want to look into your face. Or if you are a very beautiful girl with a beautiful face, if you're angry and jealous, no one wants to look at you. So it is the momentarily already it manifests. If you get angry, look at your own face. You don't even want to see your own face. So you can see it really directly in this very moment. Right now, in this very moment, already hatred manifests like a hell realm. The other day also there was a question that came up about a person who said that you're always saying that we must respect beings as our parents, but then have an aversion against everyone because everyone seems to be a threat. Everyone tries to harm me, everyone tries to cast spells on me. And that kind of thought is the nature of self-grasping that makes the mind freeze like an ice block. And when we solidify this grasping, the mind becomes more narrow and more narrow, and eventually we experience the suffering of hell realms, even in this lifetime already. In America, for example, people experience really God-like happiness, outer enjoyments, wealth, possessions, nice houses. But then what about their minds? Their minds are like prisoners. And what is the fault of that? It comes down to the emotions that have not been subjugated. For example, when we look back into the animal realm, there are some animals that are very pleasing, like a bird or a peacock, for example, and we are drawn to them and we like to feed them, give them little food to eat. And when we think about that, on the one hand, they have this negative form of an animal that is due to their karma of ignorance. On the other hand, they are a very pleasing animal, and that is because they have cultivated some love and compassion in their mind stream. And then there's other animals that are very frightening, like poisonous snakes or scorpions, for example, or other little creatures that we must kill in order to prevent our own harm. For example, when our food is poisoned, we are killing them, but actually through their karma, they are actually killing themselves. So when we think about karma in this way, really from the depths of our heart, a fear will arise. And we must understand karma in two ways. There is the outer karma and the inner karma. And the outer karma refers to our outer actions. And so one may think that I am a good person, I am not killing anyone, I am not stealing, I am not doing anything bad. But it's not that simple actually, because you must look inside your mind. You must understand the inner karma. The inner karma are the afflictive emotions, jealousy, hatred, and so forth. Each and every day, how many of these arise all the time in my mind stream? How do I treat my family? How do I treat my children, my husband, my wife, my spiritual masters? How do I treat all those around me? The negative emotions fall down into my mind stream like rain showering down continuously. So in that way you can cultivate trust into the actual inner karma. And understanding that, you will cultivate some mindfulness that begins to recognize each and every afflictive emotion as it arises. You have that mindfulness as it is a quality, an inborn quality of Buddha nature. And the Buddha introduces us to that. When we take refuge, we are first introduced to that. When we take refuge in the Buddha, although we talk about the outer Buddhas, the Buddhas of the 3 times that are infinite, but we really must understand the inner Buddha that we seek refuge in, and that arises from the quality of Buddha nature, and that is your mindful awareness. So the inner and actual Buddha is your own wisdom awareness that recognizes. And that wisdom awareness must give rise to compassion. And then that is a special quality that we cultivate as Buddhist practitioners. The union of emptiness or wisdom and compassion. So therefore we are introduced, give rise to love and compassion. What is the benefit of that? If we give rise to love and compassion, we do not think about ourselves. So self-grasping is destroyed. Through wisdom awareness, this mindful awareness, we recognize when an afflictive emotion comes up. And recognizing it, again, it will dissipate. For example, if you get angry at a person and you have some mindfulness, immediately you will recognize, well, let that person say whatever they want. What is really harming me is that anger in my mind. That's my real enemy. So even if that person takes my house or takes anything I have, I shall not get angry at that person, because what really causes harm is hatred. And if I do not give rise to hatred, then nothing can really harm me. And in fact, I will accumulate great merit. So in the same way, also was for me, in old days I lost everything, my house and my clothing. I was in prison. And now I'm invited in different centers in different places. Karma works in that way. And Lord Chikdun Sumgyen also had said, if you cultivate trust in karma from the depths of your heart, if you cultivate trust in karma, there is no greater dharma practice than that. If you cultivate trust in karma, you will be able to give rise to love and compassion. And so we must think about the inner karma when we contemplate karma. We must understand that the inner karma, the actual karma, arises from our afflictive emotions. And when we take refuge, we must understand the actual source of refuge, which is your own awareness, your own wisdom. That is the actual Buddha. The actual Dharma that we take refuge in is your own compassion. That also is the root samaya when we take an empowerment in the Vajrayana. So there is really nothing that does not rely on the union of wisdom and compassion. And if you have cultivated wisdom and compassion, whenever a negative thought arises, you will be able to recognize it and confess it, regret it. To only recite verbally recitations of confession is of no benefit. You must think in your heart, this negative thought, like anger for example, that is very harmful. And the moment you think that anger is harmful, already the anger is gone, because we have said you cannot have two thoughts in your mind at the same time, only one thought. So first you have the thought of anger, but then you have the thought anger is a bad thing. And once you think that, the other bad thought of anger already is gone. And again it arises, and again it disappears, and again it arises, and again it disappears. And in that way we always train and practice continuously. So in terms of the precious human incarnation, I have found it very beneficial to contemplate the difficulty to obtain it in terms of its causes and numbers in particular. And thought that if you would contemplate that, it would benefit you each and every day, and your practice will go well.
눈매가 차고요래. 그랬나? 샴바 때문에 강의서. 샴바 때는 괜찮바 괜찮아 기능이 용고요래. 담나 그 제가 뜻이 아마 정대. 그 아마 도포 로모 게기 자카 라고 제가 피바 데이 줬어요. 제가 문에 제가 왔다 깨고요. 그 사람이 자 요바 데이 문제네. 그 문제는 빼나. 아마 가든 저걸 같이 아마 제가 내라 그러래. 또 제가 제가 저 아마 제가면 저 아메 갈다서 마음에 듣고 당서세. 저 아메 듣고 당서 저 아마가 저 고바지 아마 잡아도 아메 가르쳤어. 야 사실 마을 권위는 매일 담으라는데 뭐 내가 딴 거 할 때 소송 안 하는데 뭐 되게 내 마을이 내가 내게 되어야만 아마도 입에 차리 저거 속자들이나 아마도 다 보자고 와. 뭐 도망가 과거 뽑고 큰 조도. 제가 그 제가 그랬잖아. 잠바지. 대달라나. 야 아마도 제가나. 딱 문에 전에 그 제가 장미 발랑이 고볼로 송하는 야. 이와 장미 발언을 끄덕 차리고 아마 맞으면 찍장이요 말이지. 동급에 내려오래. 그 사지 좀 동급에 내려오고 동급에 내려오게 밀리면 쓰여다. 야, 너희 때는 배려도 무슨 가수만 야, 로게 봐도 성한테는 아마 지요래. 그 람, 사부가로 공주지는 문의 생주가 가거든. 빠지는 오늘 빠지래. 마상지는 늦어지는데 오늘 빠지래. 아마지래. 스모지래. 부자지래. 또 문에 들리라고 세거든요. 띄워지워지 코돌아서 맞지 보여. 소소로 계단 들이도고요. 띄워더니 또 나서 맞지 보여. 그래서 잡혔던 게 포만만 뒤에 찍자고 말이. 기기만 뒤에 찍자고. 기기면 뭐또 다 매매와나기를 다 욕지 말하듯이. 강이 또다 못해들 내가 듣고요 말아. 용이 매요. 쫄람 들어가니 싸고 그러라. 이거야 또 노래 듣고 있다는 거지. 들어오라면 소식을 같이 소식이 얼마나 들어오라 시간이 찍자요 나가 뭐라 시작으로 대답을 가기를 계기가 되지 버리 계기 통세 야 계기는 다 직디 매체에 계기 처리를 또 계기 사게 가리가 되지 버리 대리장 체득체가 다니 좀 뒤가 지람 마보고 들람도 봐도 레지비로 교신이 가리잖아 오, 진짜 말하는 게 류회장. 조금까지는 토르로 돈이 맞다 그리. 내가 그걸 제가 체가 사는 교실을 그걸 써놓고 소들이도 거려. 하마를 그걸 대시성들이 얘기는 세와. 야. 약한 내다도 매나. 랑가데 찍고 싸먹고, 최대 찍고 싸먹고, 뭐 찍고 싸먹고, 최대 약한. 무슨 말이야, 요 말이야. 매나야, 약한 집안이 편집이 오랬다. 편집가를 있지 몰라. 약한 때도 팽을 받을 약한데 우리. 자꾸들 아마 약한도 지가 들이서는 들이문에 샘이 치고 차로. 좋다 약한라 팽을 소소로 다 개방게 들이통을 때는 잡아야 돼. 이 잡을 때는 유라오나. 야, 딱 가서는 야, 소통은 빠리 마마리. 야, 약하고 레디도 문에 다니다가 약간 마음이 보는데 약한 짓도 소리 싸움을 거죠. 마음을 띄워지게 레디를 띄워지게 천수는 연거래. 라청 그랬더니 너무 밑에 잡고 라땅 차게 야. 대도로 때는 삼백등에 들으더니 민지 속차 무슨 속차도 동의해 주나 문이 띄워지게 와. 야. 삼마다 말들은 이게 그러면 치총총을 때 띄워지게 와. 이 차도 세게 어때? 이제 아주 빠져. 이게로 나는 체리 빼다고 해라. 얘는 그 사바다 경기 제일 거래. 너는 사바다 경기가 좀 되지야 돼. 그래 나가 사지를 제출해. 그래서 같은 삼교에
So we have said that we must cultivate love and compassion, and so it's important that they actually come together. And that love is, or loving kindness is combined with compassion, and compassion with love. If they do not come as a union, then it becomes just ordinary love or ordinary compassion, which is impermanent and has no essence. So first, when we cultivate the samadhi of love, we cultivate that through remembering the kindness that we have received, and then the wish to repay that kindness. So first we think about our mothers and the kindness that we have received, or our friends, our teachers, our country, and so forth. And when we cultivate love for them, that is a wish for them to be happy. So first we remember the kindness of our mothers. And then there is again some people who say, I don't love my mother because she was bad to me. And that actually is a sign of great ignorance. So when you ask, what is it that your mother did to you, then you may come up with some reasons. But then, what did she do until you could walk? How did she take care of you? There are some mothers who abort their children when they are still in their wombs, but that also is the individual being's karma. But even in the animal realms, mothers take care of their children. For example, if you have when they're just born, a little ant, the mother ant carries the baby ant on their back. And so that is how, it's just the nature of things. The mothers make their child be able to walk, and at least until that point. And so that is the love that we have received. And then Nagarjuna had said, from a conventional perspective, all beings without exception have been that mother, since we have taken on infinite lifetimes. And that really is a fact. We have taken on infinite lifetimes. And so the Buddha said, if it is the fact of reality, how come people can still not agree to it? So that statement also really had benefited myself greatly. And so thinking of my past parents, whenever I meet an older person, I would think, this is my mother or this is my father. And once it is habituated, it just arises in an instant, and you really feel a connection to that person's mind. You, for example, go to a family and stay there for a week, and after that time it seems this is really my mother, this is my father, this is my sister, my relative, my brother. And so you really cultivate love in that way. You will make others happy, and also it is to your own benefit. In that way you are accumulating love, like a honey bee. So continuously you cultivate love for whoever you meet, and you see everyone as your parents. And then also, when we cultivate love, we must remember the kindness that we have received from our teachers. Without the teachers, we would be like blind people. We would not know anything. We have known anything, we have learned everything from our teachers. And therefore now we know how to function in this world. There are some people who have not followed teachers, and although they appear as humans, their conduct is like animals. Actually sometimes even worse than animals. Because most animals at least can take care of their own living, and some people cannot even do that. At least animals do not commit suicide, and some people even do that. So if we have such an ignorant view, it just gets worse and worse. And in order to dispel that, we need our teachers. How kind have even the worldly teachers have been, the scientists, for example. And how kind was the Master who has shown us the workings of karma that will benefit us in all our future lifetimes, in all until we attain enlightenment. So there's really nothing more precious than our teachers. Therefore we say the teacher is even more precious than one's own body. Because this body, in the end, we will leave it behind, like an old pair of clothing. But the teachers have opened our eyes throughout many lifetimes. So to pay great respect to teachers and parents is an inconceivable merit. And then thirdly, we must also cultivate love for our country. If we do not cultivate love for our country, if we would not have our country, how would it be? The things we take for granted, like how would it be without the roads like that, or the water, or the electricity? In some countries, like in our country, we don't have all that so perfectly. And then we have the laws in this country. How kind are the laws of this country and beneficial? And in particular in a country like this of independence. So when you cultivate love in that way, your mind will become very vast. You will benefit the country, and also it will be to your own benefit. So in that way you cultivate love. And once you have cultivated this samadhi of love, wherever you go, everyone will appear as someone very close to you, like your father or your mother, or when you even meet, for example, a government official or a soldier, you will think that they are protecting the country. And I also shall protect this place and observe the law. Then immediately you become a good person and a compassionate person. When you see any animal, you would think that what kind of suffering is that poor being? And you would really cultivate love for that being. So that is the union of love and compassion. If there is no union, if there's just normal compassion, but we have not really cultivated love, it will be very biased. For example, you have a little pet dog that you love very much, but then you go ahead and kill other animals. You have an ordinary grasping, you think that's my dog, so there's a grasping. It is important that these come hand in hand. Love and compassion come in a union. And that union is a special feature of the Buddha's teachings. So now we stop instructions for now.
Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. 这装了不就完了嘞？
This is Trungpa Rinpoche's way of reciting Mani Mantra.